Hey gang, thanks for joining us for another episode of Chicken Skin Moments with Pastor Dain, where I find cool stuff in the Bible and get to turn you onto it. Today is a really interesting concept I call bronze shields, and it comes from a reading I was doing the other day in the book of 2nd Chronicles. Let me set up the story for you. King Solomon is an amazing man, full of great wisdom. He kind of falters, at the end, but that's another story. But he's a great man of great wisdom. And one of the things he does, because he has so much wealth due to all his wisdom, is he creates 200 solid gold shields for sort of his personal guard. These are the guards that guard him personally, and they also serve in the temple. Now, unfortunately for Solomon, he has a son by the name of Rehoboam, and Rehoboam takes over from Solomon and becomes king of Israel. Only Rehoboam doesn't exactly follow the ways of his Lord. And let me explain to you what happens by just reading these two quick verses. After Rehoboam's position as king was established and he had become strong, he and all Israel with him abandoned the law of the Lord. Very unwise, by the way. Because they had been unfaithful to the Lord, Shishak, king of Egypt, attacked Jerusalem in the 5th year of King Rehoboam. And I'll paraphrase what happens next, but the king of Egypt attacks Israel, and what does he do? He takes all the golden shields that his father Solomon had made. Now he's kind of bummed, and he's all out of gold because he lost out to the Egyptians. So what he does is he has 200 bronze shields made. And to be honest with you, it's kind of sad when you think about it, because now when Rehoboam comes out of his little palace and he's going to march over to the temple, and his guys are carrying these shields, only everybody's kind of aware that, they're not gold shields like your father Solomon had. He's kind of almost pretending that they're something they're not, because they're really not worth much, but he's pretending they're worth greatly, all because he abandoned God. Now, this is a really interesting teaching for our lives. When we don't listen to God, when we're disobedient to God, and we try to parade around as if we're being blessed, but we're not really being blessed the way we could be if we are being obedient to God. I call that a bronze shield. Let me give you one small example, like a wedding, for example, and for that matter, the marriage to follow. I'll give you two examples, both from true stories that I experienced. One is a really good friend of mine who described how his sort of wedding came together. He said, Dain, we really didn't do it right. He said, we did the typical 21st century American thing, and even though we considered ourselves Christians at the time, we met in a bar and we had some drinks and we went home and we slept together, and then, we kept going out and we kept going out to bars and sleeping together until eventually we figured for economic reasons it just made more sense if she moved in with me. So she moved in with me and we lived together for a year just doing our thing, and then eventually we felt like, hey, well, maybe we should get married. So we called all our friends together or whatever, and we basically had a big party. And you can imagine the scene. We went down the aisle and she's wearing all white as if, she was all pure and a virgin or whatever. And then we say blah, 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 before God, I promised, or whatever, But we just really wanted to get to the party. And then after the service was over, we had a big party. And as you can imagine, we all got pretty well hammered. And then at the very end of the party, we were pretty much the last ones there. Everybody had left, and we're waving goodbye to the last people to leave. And he goes, at that point, Dain, man, we were exhausted. We went home and passed out, and that was our wedding night. Okay. I think that's a pretty good example of what I'd call a bronze shield. Now, let me give you the gold shield version of that same story. True story. Two great families I know, all of them super loving the Lord, engaged and involved in the church. In fact, between the two sets of grandparents and the two sets of parents, between them, they had over 160 years of faithful marriage. And they produced these two kids, a boy and a girl, and they're raised up in the ways of the Lord to honor God. And when they come together, they verbalize both to each other and to their families that our desire is to honor God in how we handle our relationship. And I think you can do the math behind what they meant by that. And they date for, 6 months, a year or so, and then they decide to enter into the covenant of marriage. And so the groom goes and asks permission from the bride's parents, and they get together and they call together all the families of the church, and it was actually a bunch of different churches here on the island, and all the community of God comes together, and during the service They honor God and they make a covenant between God and them, and everybody around agrees to that covenant and agrees to assist them in completing that covenant before God. And then the party starts, and of course the party's just awesome, just great families coming together, great people, whatever. But here's an interesting difference. In the middle of the party, the bride and groom have sort of completed all the different things they're supposed to do, you know, cutting the cake and the first dance and all that. And while the party is in full swing, they're the first ones to leave. And so the whole party gathers around together while they get in a car to wave goodbye. Why? Because they're off to their wedding night, which is going to be a lot different than my other friend's wedding night, right? This is a night of magic, a night of fairy tale. And it's a night of goodness. This is the gold shield standard. Now, I use that wedding night as an example, and if you're like me, not very many of us pull off the gold standard. We're somewhere there on that scale between bronze and gold, or what have you. But don't miss the lesson. Do you realize no matter how you did your wedding and your wedding night and your dating, whatever, from this moment on, you can agree to be obedient to God in the way you live your life, to live your life in a way that honors God and upholds His standard of living. And when you do that, what you gain from that is a gold shield in your life. And it would work not only in your marriage, but in your business or in your school, the way you handle yourself in social situations. Basically, your whole life can be raised to the gold standard, the gold shield standard, when you do things God's way. That's the story of the bronze shield versus the gold shield. And I challenge you to look around your life and see where it's being done right, where it's being done wrong, and the difference between pretending your shield is made of gold and actually having a gold shield. Hope you enjoyed that teaching. Hey gang, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tell your friends, write your congressman, whatever you got to do. But thanks for watching the video. You're going to want to check out this next video as well. And other than that, we'll see you next time. God bless.